Who were you before you lost your wild self?
That's what we're helping you explore on the Tend Her Wild podcast.
Through questions and tools around how best to listen to your inner voice,
rewild ourselves, and live the most authentic life where we thrive instead of survive.
I'm Betsy.
And I'm Kate.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this episode.
Hello, Tend Her Wild podcast listeners. On today's episode, we are going to be celebrating Betsy turning 50. She just turned 50 last week, and I said, we need to capture how you are feeling about it. And I'm a few years ahead of her, so we're going to talk about 50 and this magic of 50.
I'm 7 days in, so,
yeah. So
8 days in.
See how she's feeling.
Doing.
I remember anticipating it. So I know you've been anticipating it for a while too. So now you're here. So first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Had a chance to celebrate you a couple different times.
Yes. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Tell us, well, first of all, remind us a little bit about, like, were you anxious leading up to this birthday? Were you excited? Like, how have you been feeling prior to the birthday?
Yeah, I would say that I had a little bit of foreboding.
Okay.
And I was sort of curious about it. I was like, because traditionally, actually, I've always enjoyed my birthdays. Like from an early age, my thing is I always got the same birthday cake. I always spent time writing in my journal. You know, we would usually go do something special, like go out for dinner. My mom always made birthdays really special. She would always have birthday presents wrapped. And so in general, I've always had a good relationship to my birthday, but there really has been something about knowing that I was coming up to my 50th birthday that has felt different. It's felt a little uncomfortable in my body, and I wasn't quite sure what it's about. I still maybe don't fully know what it's about. Although now that I've crossed threshold, I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. But prior to it, there was something about like, oh man, I am most likely have lived over half of my life. So there feels something new in me. Yeah, there's grief, but there's also something new of like a little bit of anticipation, or even like a little fear of like, oh shit, what if I am not living well? What if I am missing out on something? My life is short. So holy shit, I got to get done and experience and really show up in the way that is most authentic to me. And what if I'm not doing that? And I better figure this out. So I feel like it was a lot of that was wrapped into this cusp, and leading up to it is that sense of like, oh man, this is getting real. Life is getting real right now.
Yeah. I had that same feeling. I remember.
Do you?
Well. Oh yeah. Well, when I went to Iceland, that was my 50th birthday present. Remember?
Yes.
Kind of to myself.
Yes.
And yeah, I had a lot of like, okay, you reflect back, but you also have this fear and feeling of like, okay, I don't know how much maybe not going to get another 50. So how does that kind of accelerate like this need to do all the things that you've once dreamt about, or is that going to happen? There's a little bit of, anxiety that comes just with wanting to fully live, I think. And what is this next phase going to look like? And it really does feel like it's the half century. I think it's this magical mark in time that feels really momentous.
It does. It feels really momentous.
Yeah.
More so than any other birthday has ever felt. I mean, my 16th birthday, I remember, felt like a big deal. Yeah. You know, my 40th birthday, I remember I had a big party for that. But this one did feel different. And this is the other thing that I'm realizing about this entrance into the 50s is there is a new, I don't even know if I can quite find the right words for it, but like there's a new dedication to self.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I don't know what that's about, but it is like a sense of like, oh, okay, this is your life.
Yes.
Like up until our 50s, it's like I put so much effort into children, child rearing. I put so much effort into, tending to my businesses and to my friends and to my partner. And all of a sudden, there feels like there's this real shift of like, oh, but what about Betsy? Like,
Yeah.
can you start to tend to yourself in the same way you've so lovingly tended to so many others? That feels different and new. And yeah, I'm real curious about where that's going to
Yeah.
go.
I think that's very, very true. It's almost like a mirror comes up at 50 and you're faced kind of with yourself, like looking at yourself and your life and there's a chance to kind of reclaim yourself, reinvest in yourself. You just feel this.
Reinvest. Yeah.
Yeah, like so it's definitely it was a pause for me and it sounds like for you too.
Yeah. I feel like well the pause was a little bit forced.
Yeah, I want to
So
hear about this.
yeah.
I want our listeners to know.
So yeah, essentially let me see if I can figure this out. About 3 days before my actual birthday, 4 days before my actual birthday, I got laryngitis.
Mm.
And I don't think I've ever had laryngitis like I had laryngitis, like to the point where I literally could not make a sound. I mean, I could whisper, but like I could not get any sound out. And I was like, what is going on? I didn't have any other weird symptoms. Like I took a COVID test. I'm like, what is going on? I just like my voice went away.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, like I'm the mind body person and I'm always like analyzing, all right, what does this mean? What does this mean? And I mean, I'm sure I haven't fully culled all of the meaning behind it, but right now where I sit at this moment, it was like, you have nothing left to say about your 40s. Like there's nothing left to be said. There's nothing left to express, make sense of, talk through, pontificate about. Like fucking shut up is basically what I think my message was. Like,
yeah,
okay, just be quiet and listen.
Listen.
And so I actually had to cancel some plans that I had around my birthday because I was like, I can't talk.
Okay, but also you have to tell the listeners what was going on with your daughter that weekend that you lost your voice.
Oh, the play that she was in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So my daughter was in the play The Little Mermaid, and she was the crab who is friends with Ariel. And she had this, and she also had like a little throat stuff. But the whole play is about this mermaid who gives up her voice to the evil darkness so that she can fricking land the prince.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I sat through 4 performances watching it. And you're right. And then, yeah. And then the last performance happened. And then I lost my voice that night.
Yeah.
So yeah, how was I? God, yeah, you're right.
I thought that was crazy because I knew we recorded on Friday and then you said on Saturday night it was gone.
It was gone.
And I was like, she was at the Little Mermaid all day.
Oh, I was at the Little Mermaid 3 days in a row watching 4 performances. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm that suggestible that I like really lived the story, but there is something to that story about she is willing to give up her natural essence, her most prized gift, her voice for the love of, or for this man that she thinks is going to be her Prince Charming, right? Like, how do we women give up our voice for what we believe is Prince Charming? And of course, we actually don't know how that Little Mermaid story ends.
We really don't.
Does she, they say they live happily ever after. Do they?
Yeah. Do they?
Yeah. Do they? So it took me a week to get my voice back. It's not, I mean, I'm like at 92%, I think 93%. But yeah, and the timing worked. Like I had to cancel a party that I had planned because I couldn't talk. And then there was a huge storm that night. So the party wouldn't have probably happened anyway. And so there was like, it felt like it was all, like it was divinely ordered for me to lose my voice and have to sit on a couch and be quiet and read and
be with yourself,
be with myself.
Yeah. So you kind of had a week of that, of just kind of being introspective and being quiet.
Oh, and the other really cool thing that happened is on my actual birthday, I was supposed to teach yoga, which I was planning on doing.
Yes. I was there.
And I felt fine, but I had no voice. And so someone else taught it for me, and I got to come and be in the middle and take the class as a student
Mhm.
and be surrounded by all these amazing people. And then at the end, everyone chanted Om, like this rolling Om on top of me. And I just laid in the middle and like took in all this beautiful sound from all these beautiful humans. And that would never have happened if I had had my voice because I would have just taught the class, which I do every Tuesday.
Right. And I was there
Yeah.
and got to experience that with you. And I remember thinking, how nice actually that she gets to just receive on your
Yeah.
birthday
Maybe
and take the
that's the
class.
theme for my 50th year
Mhm.
is can you
Receive.
receive more?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just such a hard thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you celebrated with family on your
Mm-hmm.
birthday. How else have you kind of marked this for yourself?
Yeah, well, I took a really beautiful trip with a couple college friends who also turned 50 in this last year. We were in the south of France. It was
There's
sort of a pilgrimage. So
safety in numbers
yeah,
when you go
that
with
was
others that are turning 50.
yeah, that was powerful. And then you had a really my actual day. I always go hiking with my kids, and
And what else do you do?
well, I often go hiking at this particular park, and I cold plunge in this cold plunge natural pool. We went to a different park, and my son Jack, who's 15 and has no frontal lobes yet, he decided he wanted to jump off this cliff into the water. And I was like, all right. I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know. Like, I'm like, okay, I think it's going to be safe. The water's pretty high. I mean, maybe not the best parenting decision at that moment, but Jack did it and jumped in and he was fine. And he came up and he's whooping. And without even knowing it, out of my mouth comes, I'm 50. I'm doing it too. And so then I ran off the side of this cliff and go into this unknown waters, which feels also very symbolic.
Yes.
And then later find out from someone, they're like, were you at the reservoir? And I was like, I was. They're like, that's illegal, don't you? I'm like, I had no idea.
So,
So I'm also
you
breaking the law
in your
as I start
50s.
my 50s,
I,
which is, I think probably okay.
I think it's
Hmm.
apropos
Yeah,
actually. So we'll have to share that video if you're willing
sure.
with
I
our
will
listeners.
share that
It's
video.
pretty good. I know you've done that every
Every year I
year.
do something with my
Yeah.
kids and we do something a little
Yeah.
wild. And
Something wild and brave. And I think you had your Tender Wild shirt on too, if I
I
remember right,
did have my
which I
Tinder Wild
loved.
shirt on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Yoga Mama, which is all the many offerings I have blending psychological science with the ancient wisdom of yoga and mindfulness. Join me for a yoga class, a meditation weekend, an online course, Wisdom Wednesday, which is the first Wednesday of every month, or maybe even an international retreat like Greece in the fall of 2025. By providing spaces and experiences for people to look inward, it is my great honor to watch people become the change they wish to see in the world.
This podcast is being sponsored by Kate Moreland Coaching. As a transformational coach and an advocate for authenticity and well being, I work to support individuals and organizations navigating challenging times. Whether you are an individual, a leader, or an organization, your creative power lies in your authenticity. Doing the work to understand your strengths and acknowledge the patterns and rocks that are in your way is the path to well being. Whether it's your career or your relationship with yourself or others, transformational change begins within. To learn more, reach out to me at katemorelandcoaching.com. So you kind of went into the weekend and your voice is coming back. And how else, did you
Yeah.
celebrate?
And then I gathered some powerful, special women in my life and had this birthday dinner that was postponed. And one of the elder women in the group offered to do a birthday ritual for me. So I had no idea what was going on, except for the fact that I'd seen someone earlier in the week. She's like, I'm a little nervous about this birthday ritual. I don't know what this is all about. I'm not woo woo. And I was like, I don't know anything about it either. So just like go with it. And it was really powerful. So, yeah, it was like we were all in this circle and this elder friend of mine opened the the four directions, and then she took me and everyone there took me on like a journey through my life, like remembering 0 to 10, what was important, something from like a message from that time period that I need to know now. And then
Yeah.
10 to 20, and then 20 to 30, 30 to 40. And I wish someone would have recorded it because I can't remember everything that came through, but it was very poignant.
It really was. I got to be with you on your 40s to 50s
Yeah,
decade,
you did. Very
and which
close.
was kind of has been our decade collaborating and being our friendship was born during that
Yeah.
time, all of that. So it
Yeah,
was really
you led me from the 40s
Mhm.
to 50s. You held my hands tightly and you're like, I know this has been a hard decade
Yeah.
and look at all that you've also how you've grown so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful
It was
ritual. It was
powerful. And then
very
they
powerful.
put us she had this stick in the middle of the circle.
Yeah.
And then she's like, and now you jump over this stick into the great unknown, into the great mystery.
Yeah.
And so, and it was funny. I mean, it was just a stick in the middle of the room. And I was like, I feel really nervous. I felt something in my body like, oh,
You did.
this is kind of big. And then of course I jumped over the stick. And then
We all did.
everyone, no matter the age, jumped over the stick. So it was really powerful. And you and I talked about ritual
Mhm.
and how ritual is something that is so lost in many ways in our culture. I mean, I guess the ritual of having a birthday cake and singing, that is something maybe we hold on to. But at these really peak moments of
Mhm.
change, whether it's from maidenhood into motherhood, from motherhood into cronehood, like these points in our life, like really honoring them with an actual ritual or actual sort of present, focused honoring. And so I'm so grateful for what kind of unfolded that night. It
Yeah.
feels like it really did guide me into this new decade in a powerful way.
Yeah. And it's also, I think ritual for women used to traditionally be so much greater. Women coming together for
Yeah,
different
circling
things, red
together.
tent, all those things.
Yeah.
And and what I was reminded of that night was the collective wisdom of a larger group
Yes.
and how we were each part of your lives at different times and for different
Different ways.
reasons and
Yeah.
ways. And then having, strong crone energy that you're connected to as you go into this next phase of your life, because we've talked on this podcast about how we need to tap more into that crone wisdom from other women and
Yes.
show up for each other, and we need to listen to that
Yes.
wisdom. And I felt that very present too. So you had women at different ages that were there. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the ritual and then also just the collective power of the feminine to kind of
Mm-hmm.
bring you into that next
Mm-hmm.
decade was really
I
neat.
also want to share an interesting conversation that I had with the eldest of the group, who's in her 70s. And I was driving her home after the experience, and she said, that was just amazing. That might be one of the most amazing things I've ever done. And she said, there was no weirdness, and everyone treated each other so well. And I said, I think like that's my experience. I said, this is how, the retreats that I teach go is that you
Mhm.
set the intention and you like set the space for we're here in love, we're here in respect, we're here in honoring one another and all the various gifts we all carry. We don't come with competition or weirdness. We come in like support of one another. And then if that's your intention behind it, that's how it always flows. I mean, think about even the big event you and I did with other women last fall. It was
Mhm.
the Tend Her Resilience Summit. And it was the same thing. There were 150 women there who we didn't know all of each other, but the energy and the vibe was one
Yeah.
of acceptance. And so I feel like it goes back to our conversation of sister wounds and how
Mhm.
so many of us have been wounded by the feminine. And so we don't trust that a group of women can come together and actually be in like support and love and see each other's beauty and laugh with one another. And there's not competition and there's not jealousy. It's just like a really beautiful gathering. That struck me. And it struck me that the elder woman was like, whoa, that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it can.
Yeah. And we need that right now too. I mean, there's a sense of, I'm feeling it collectively, even in our country right now, of women coming together. And so I think the more we can do that for one another and have that mutual respect and understanding and hold space for each other and just be in community together,
Yeah.
there's so much power in that,
Yeah.
the collective.
Yeah.
And so whether it's for these ritual moments or, how we want to, tackle problems in the world or work on, different issues that we're passionate about, when women come together, first of all, I hadn't laughed that hard in a really long time.
Yes.
We laughed so much.
Yes.
Everyone's guard felt just down.
Yes.
And
there's so much authenticity and
Yes.
vulnerability.
Yes.
So many people telling stories about their lives. These are women I've known for a long time, and people saying things that I had no idea about that. Whoa, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just a beautiful night. And
did you feel energized?
Oh my God, yeah.
For how long?
Oh, several days.
Yeah.
After.
That was the other thing that I was really struck by, is when women come together and support and love, encouragement and joy and laughter. Like my batteries were so recharged in a way I haven't felt in so long.
Yeah. That's a very good reminder that, to bring your women friends together right now.
Yeah.
I did tell you a little story when I got home that my son and his friends were sitting around a fire, because I was thinking how powerful the circle was all the way home. And then I got home and my son was sitting around this fire pit with all his buddies.
His 18-year-old buddies.
Yeah. And they're all talking and, in community too. And I remember thinking, we all need this.
We all need circles.
We all need it.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, back to 50. So
yes. So, well, okay. Now this is where I want to take it, because you have been, you got a couple years on me. Mm-hmm. So you've been living in your 50s for a couple years now. And so I'm curious if you have any advice. Or the one thing I've heard from several 50-year-old women, I've heard from several women, they're like, this is the best decade yet. You're sure of yourself and you have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, I had to lose my voice, so now I can gain it back, and maybe a better, more
stronger
voice. But I'm curious from you, Kate, like do you have any advice, or do you have anything, wisdom you want to impart about living in the 50s?
So you just don't give a shit about so many things anymore.
Yes, I'm ready for that.
And as things come up, you will be like, oh, I used to care about that. I don't care about that anymore. And it's so freeing.
Yeah.
Because
there's more freedom.
There's more freedom. Freedom is your 50s. Freedom is your 50s. Because your kids are starting to leave home, and that's happening for you here in a few months. First one. Few weeks. Yeah. And so space starts to open up, like literal space, because you're going to have, 2 instead of 3. They're getting older. I think you told me today, like they're taking care of themselves, over the summer, right? They're independent. So their independence suddenly leads to your independence if you allow it.
Freedom and independence.
Yeah. So all of that creates this new space, which I found the desire to embrace it and try not to fight it. So you get bolder.
Yeah.
You get bolder.
Okay.
Things come up and you're like, well, shit. Yeah, I might as well do that. I haven't done that before. I haven't tried that before. I haven't traveled there.
Might as well jump off that cliff.
Right. You just, because suddenly it's like, well, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it?
Yeah.
I think relationships become deeper. I found my circle maybe a little smaller, but deeper.
Yes. I've noticed that already in my life.
You've been working toward that. And I think that also is so enriching. So when we have limited time, like I'm much more conscious of the energy I want around me and who I'm spending time with.
Yes.
So that you just start to know yourself and so much better. I just feel like the 50s, there's just space for that. There's space for knowing yourself and growing into yourself. And 50s when I really tapped into what I wanted. What do I want? What do I want?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Instead of what does everyone need?
Yeah. Well, can we share what? So during the ceremony, my crone friend said, you need to make some vows to yourself. And that felt like I was like, vows? What? I don't know.
Marrying myself?
And she had a couple things that she had me repeat. And then what just came to me is like, okay, I'm going to vow to put myself first.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what that's like. I put other people first. That's what I was taught, and that's what I'm supposed to do. And yet that is what came through. It's like, oh, I'm making a vow to like take care of myself and put myself first. And one of the women in the group started this song. She like started to make up this song, and everyone starts to sing this song about she said she'd put herself first. She said she'd put herself first. And so like everyone is singing this song. Oh my gosh.
It
I think
became your anthem.
it's going to be my anthem of my 50s, I think. Yeah. So that idea of like you figure out what you want.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting that it happens in a group of women who say,
because I remember I said, I'm embarrassed to say this. I feel bad saying that I'm going to put myself first. And then everyone's whooping. And then the song breaks out and everyone, it was, I will never forget that moment.
Yeah. And I vow to you that when I see you putting yourself first, I'm going to say, I see you.
Will you also give me a little kick in the behind when you're like, Betsy, I see that you're putting so and so and so and so and yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think we need these mirrors with each other.
Mm-hmm. I do too. So I'm going to do that for you as you in this first year till you're fully trained.
Till I'm fully become an adult in my 50s.
And just like the Saturday Night Live skit, you can still kick, which you also proved to us.
I did prove that, did I not? Yes.
So keep kicking in your 50s as long as you can.
Okay. Kicking and roaring. That's
kicking and roaring. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an exciting time. I think it's the first decade where I feel much more conscious about the relationship with myself in all aspects. Like my career, my desires, my body, my emotions, all of that stuff. I just feel so much more self-awareness. And because I'm not so busy trying to take care of others and manage other people's emotions. And it's just like all of a sudden
you become less codependent.
I think I have.
Okay. I'm so excited for that part, right? Like again, everyone has autonomy for their own life, and
that's right.
It's not up to me to make sure people are okay.
Yeah.
It feels really key.
Yeah. And I think turning 50 is a I want to say a wake-up call, but it kind of is. It's like, it
does feel like a wake-up call. It is really and maybe that's why they say awakening happens in the second half of life, because we're not ready to awaken to our truth or our potential or really see it. And there is a vantage point, an awakening here that I feel like is really emerging. I'm not fully there, but I can see that something is shifting. I can feel something is shifting in me.
Yeah. Well, you're about where I was in Iceland when I was really
I'm thinking about everything that has happened to you. So many major things have happened to you since that Iceland trip. So holy cow, fasten my seatbelt. We'll see what's going to happen.
Betsy's 50 and she's drinking out of a mug that says it was never a dress. We'll show you that on the.
We'll show you the picture. You can't probably get it on air, but we'll put it on there.
Yeah. So, well, happy birthday to you.
Thank
50
you, Kate.
Is going to be
Thank
fabulous.
you for being my intrepid guide who's a couple steps ahead of me. And I do look to you. So thank you for continuing to provide me guidance and support. And like, it's okay up here. Come on.
No, I do feel
jump in.
The water's fine.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
She said she put herself first. 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 She said she put herself first.